Aloha mai, velina mai ne, makoe pai aina. Welcome to Truth and Justice in Hawaii, makoe pai aina. We are here live with you at your venue for free speech and to express yourself, as is your right before government gave you any rights. And that's a wonderful thing to preserve and to keep going on easy and strong. Here we are once again. We are live at your community television studio, right here at Akaku Community Television Studio. We are streaming live, by the way, also on Channel 53. You can check us out on your laptop or your television if you're all hooked up on that deal at akaku.org, Channel 53. Thank you for joining us once again. And also thank you for joining us. A couple of weeks ago, we had Dr. Richard Fine, PhD in international law, with us. Incredibly impressive individual, wonderful being, got his spirit right there centered in justice and law. He actually fought for his own justice, where he was thrown into jail in LA for contempt of court because he was on the track of exposing several judges taking bribes in their course of office there. And he happened to be here on the wonderful island of Maui with us. And he was here to share his mana'o and his wonderful expert skill in not only international law, but also in economics, and also antitrust laws, which are very, very important to us here. If you'd like to check out that interview and see it again and again and again, you can check it out on YouTube. You can check it out. I think the title is Mahealani and Dr. Richard Fine interview Akaku. And chances are, if you go to YouTube and you just check out under search Mahealani or Dr. Fine, you'll probably hit on it, and it's also circulating around Facebook. What a wonderful social utility that is. Mahalo. Just a couple of announcements before we get into our wonderful show with our special guest. He's homegrown from this island, and everybody out there, you gotta know who he is. So I'll keep you in suspense a little bit longer. November 9th, November 29th, that's 2/9. The Sea Shepherd Conservation Society would like to invite all of you to a film screening of The Confessions of an Eco-Terrorist. And also, when you're there, watching the screening and enjoying the film and learning more about the Sea Shepherd Society Hawaii chapter that is being formed right here, Maui Ne. That's going to be held at the MAC in the McCoy Theater. You will be able to meet and personally hang out with the producer, Peter Brown. He's going to be here with us on Maui, sharing his aloha and his mana'o. He is the longest serving volunteer with the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. This is an international organization that does what other states are supposed to be doing as far as protecting our ocean resources and our sources, and they do the job for everyone out there. So a big mahalo to all of you working hard there, and also a shout out to Deborah Bassett. She's the director of the chapter. You can also get in touch with Deborah and offer your volunteerism at deborahbassett.com. And Facebook, Sea Shepherd Hawaii, Hawaii chapter, mahalo. Also, of interest, we need to send our love and aloha out and support Uncle Abel, Simeona Louis Ohana on the Big Island, Mamoku Keawe. Kava'a Bay is actually being kind of, as you and I know, under the attack of DLNR and other agencies that say they are just going into check on burials, and that it's also about iwi kupuna. You can check it out like 5 minutes after the attack on Uncle Abe out there at Kava'a Bay. You know, he's got his koinai rights, he's got his Kanaka rights going on, and he's settled out there, and he's like an ambassador of Hilea Ahupua, which by the way happens to be under Ke'elikoleni and her 5 heirs that were judicially identified in her probate. And also there are nui kuleana there in Kava'a Bay. This is a wonderful area of the Big Island that you and I mean, we all are related. We are in an archipelago of ohana and family. Give them a shout out, check them out on Facebook, see what you can do. Let's support and get in there. I, for one, will be supporting Uncle Abe and giving him some support in the Palapala action. All right, PLDC, don't forget about it, November 13th, 10:30 a.m., Honolulu. We're not really sure why it's in the middle of the week and at 10:30 a.m., and it's a public hearing, and it's being held in Honolulu during this time and this date. However, you can send in written testimony and emails, just like the whole 700 or 800 of you did, following the announcements, repeal PLDC, the Public Land Destruction Corporation, or whatever they're alleging that it is. So don't forget about it, November 13th. Get your testimony in before then. Give them a shout out. This is something that is just ridiculous, and you don't want it to happen. We're not going to get into the crime with the criminals. So thank you very much. Also, we really want to give a fond aloha and a fond remembrance to a very wonderful brother. He's been in our family for a long time, and I know you know him, Anthony Natividad. As you'll see right here to my right, we are holding space with a lit candle and created like our own little ahu to remember our brother Anthony Natividad. And we'd like to say to all of you, the Ohana Natividad, that we send you our blessings and our condolences and our love forever. Anthony is a treasure and will always be remembered as such. And I'd like for you to also, we're going to show a video and a little remembrance of Anthony here, and then I'd like to introduce you to our guest, Lokahi Sylva. Aloha.
Aloha. You're going to show that video now?
We're going to show the video now, but I wanted to introduce you since we were here, you know, remembering Anthony Natividad and everything that he said, and you knew him well as well, right?
I wish I'd known him better. I had some really wonderful experiences with the man, and everyone I know feels very strongly about you know, we share the sentiment. He's a treasure. He's an amazing, amazing man. That's enough to say.
Mahalo. Let's go to this video in your honor, Anthony Natividad. We love you and love your family.
All right, thank you guys. Before I start, I want to take a picture of all of you. Even if you guys don't look like ants, I'm going to catch all of you guys. Right here, baby. Everybody say cheese. All right, and it's American cheese at that. Life is good. Okay, store only. I love these phones. Aren't they great? Well, good evening. Good evening. I get to open for everyone. And as kind of a jokester that I am, I'm going to start with the blowing of the bamboo conch. We call it a pu ohe. Yeah, and that's for real, I'm not joking. Really, it's called the pu ohe. And I'm going to blow to the 4 directions to do the announcement as a call. And then I'm going to play a small nose flute that is used to clear the air before any kind of ceremony. And as you know, any kind of concert like this is always deep. All right? So everybody point to me, which way is west?
Uh-oh.
All right. I am directionally challenged, and I wanted to start in the direction of the west, where we get to say aloha to our ancestors. Yeah? And we get to call our ancestors to come. So here we go. For this, no applaud. In fact, throughout the whole performance, no applause, please, because it breaks up the energy. Just throw money. Mahalo, everybody. Thank you for coming to our show, and we see you next year.
We'll see you next year. Okay. Mahalo to Anthony and all his ohana, his family. Anthony has a huge family, and we feel like we're part of his ohana, so we're blessed, definitely blessed. We have, in our family, we have encountered some pilikias, as most families do, and we're here to talk to you about MauiDeerCulling.com, as well as the issue that, you know, it's been created to resolve. And Lokahi here has been very instrumental in that. Lokahi, can you tell us a little bit about your background and then how you established this MauiDeerCulling.com?
Well, first of all, the deerculling.com, MauiDeerCulling.com website is tragically undermanaged. I have a family and I work, and I don't have a lot of energy, or, you know, naturally I don't have any funding to be spending a lot of time on that. So when you go to MauiDeerCulling.com, you're going to see a website that is pretty well out of date, although I did just get a Macintosh, and I'll be able to update it pretty quickly here. But there is a link on there to my website. So you go there, you'll see that it was made 6 months ago, before any funding came through from the county, or you know, before the formation of a cooperative, which I'll talk about. But from my background, I was born on Maui, raised up country, up in Upper Kula. My family owns Haleakala Ranch, and so I spent my whole life crawling all over this mountain, the whole front face of this mountain and parts of the back of it. Totally in love with Haleakala. And at the time when I had a son, I was 20 years old, and needed to provide for him. I took the background that my father gave me as a small child. He used to just take us out to the backside, because in the 80s, the goats were just rampant and destroying the upper dryland forests and just taking all of the vegetation down to nothing, down past the roots, and it was washing away. So we'd go out there and shoot goats, and we never ate any of the meat, but at the time when my son was born, it became imperative that I learned how to provide for him. So I would bird hunt, and I would go after pigs, and there was more and more deer. This was 1995. More and more deer everywhere. I noticed them, and every time I would go out and I would see the damage that they were doing, the trails and stuff on the edge of the gulches. It was apparent that more and more deer were running these trails every day, and the sheer hoof traffic is enough to take the edge of a gulch down, take it downhill to the bottom. And so that was a big motivator for me. I mean, besides that, I love to hunt, and the meat is incredible. It's the best venison on the planet, really, and that's not just my opinion. That's the reason why it was brought here. It was brought as a gift. The deer were brought here on the east to west trade vessels, and given as a gift to King Kalakaua, I believe, to feed his people. They're prolific, very good venison, the best meat they could find anywhere.
I like venison. It's not fatty, and it's not processed like meat in Safeway or Kalamai stores.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't buy it in the stores is one thing that's bothered me for a long time, and I'm not the only one. We have almost insurmountable, it seems, hurdles to overcome in the putting of that meat onto the marketplace. And that's something that I've been looking at for 15, 18 years, and I'm not the only one. Again, so growing up in the family of the ranch, as a shareholder, I would be at these shareholders' meetings, and I'd be piping up saying, we got to do something about these deer. We got to turn it into a resource somehow, because they're just not going to stop, proliferating. And, what could they do? The ranch is trying to raise cattle and trying to stay afloat. And eventually, I realized that there was nobody going to do anything about it. At one point, 10 years ago, the Maui Axis Deer Working Group gathered, and for 2 years they talked a lot about it. And a lot of input. Mayor Alan Arakawa was serving his first term as mayor, and he sat through it all, and the result of that, the product of that was the Maui Axis Deer Working Group's initial findings document of 2002. And in that, it gave a background on the deer, it gave their biology, and it was a study done by a man named Stephen Anderson, came to do his PhD thesis, and he put, there's a bunch of his own money into it, and put some radio collars on a bunch of these deer and did some studies. So anyway, the document also contains some, actually a pretty elaborate plan of action, suggestions. This is what we need to do. This would be good. We should do this, do this, do this. And there was some funding allotted, and 10 years later, we're looking at this document, and I was then sitting around the newly reconvened Maui Axis Deer Working Group talking about eradication, talking about just, we got to do something, and looking back at this document and saying, well, we knew what to do 10 years ago, and nothing's been done.
I wasn't ever aware that there was anything being done by the county to solve this problem of the deer proliferation. I mean, I remember driving up from, like McKenna side or something, and it'd be dark, and you shine your headlights up Malka, and there's like 1,000 set of eyes there, and they're all on the golf course drinking water.
They call it Christmas lights.
Yes.
A string of little green lights.
Right, and it's like, it's amazing. You go, wow, can't be that many deer in this one spot. But there are, what numbers are there on this island right now that you know of?
My personal estimate, having been watching and just witnessing the way that they hide, and how many there are, having access to the places where they hide and seeing them in those places where people don't usually go, and knowing the formula, which was put forth in this document as well in Stephen Anderson's thesis about their rate of multiplication, and it goes something like this: out of 100 deer in their natural habitat, where there's not a bunch of hunters out shooting for the antlers, there's about 60 or 65 females per 100 deer. And out of those, most of them will be adult. By a year old, they can breed. So you got about 90% of the of-age does producing at least one fawn every year. So you figure about 50 or so for every 100 deer. So if you have 1,000 deer, you got about 500 more deer. And considering how many deer were being, for the last 10 years killed every year by hunters, dogs, cars, what have you, you figure that's going to take a little margin off. And if there's only 10,000 deer, then you kill 1,000 deer a year. That's a considerable dent. Then if you consider how fast they haven't been being killed and how fast they're being, they're just growing unchecked, they figured there was about 8 to 10,000 in 95 or 90-something, 97 when they first started talking about it. And I think they estimated 14,000 at the time of that study. I'm not real good at math, but it looks like geometric growth, which grows faster and faster because the more deer there are and the faster they're breeding, and the same amount we're taking, more are getting hit by cars, more are getting taken, but still it's not enough to check the numbers. So, I mean, people say, oh, there's 12,000 because they read it in the paper last year. It's not accurate. It's not accurate at all. Ranchers see herds of thousands at a time in one place, and they're all over Maui now, in all the little nooks and crannies. And it's amazing to me how many people will tell you, I've been here for 3 years. I've lived on Maui for 3 years, and I've never seen a deer. Why you never seen a deer? Well, you never stopped and turned your headlights off the side at McKenna to see the numbers on the golf course. You've never been out in the places where people don't usually go. Most of them are on private land. So a big factor is that people don't have access. A lot of hunters don't have access to the land where the deer are in numbers.
Well, there's a couple of things. There's access to the deer. There's, awareness being shared now amongst everyone that the deer are causing a problem. The same thing, they're denuding our environment. How can we even think about creating sustainable communities or regenerative village thinking if we do not address this issue? So that's why you're here, and we really appreciate you being here and really taking a stand for this matter, because there's two sides to this. There's the traditional mana'o, where it's like, well, I don't want to incorporatize my right to hunt and fish or whatever. Yeah, don't incorporatize it. I don't think that's what you're asking. You're just saying, why don't you just be open and welcome the mana'o or the thought process of making this a part of your local economy, right? And not having it become A and B's economy or the other guy's economy, and then have our local base be displaced from having anything in there, because it is our vested interest to have food sovereignty. And that's a very big issue when it comes to creating community. So what are we going to do about this?
Well, if you want to grow food, you have to either buy a lot of fencing or get really proactive in keeping the deer out of your fields, like some farmers I know who set up a canopy tent in the middle of their field with a bed in it and go out and sleep in the fields with their dogs at night to scare the deer off when they come. We've got too many deer island-wide, and so even people with just a little garden are having to look into deer fencing if they want to have food grow. So my interest in it became even more focused about 5 years ago when I came back to Maui. Realized there was probably 40 to 60,000 deer that were running around, and you see herds of 40 babies, and you're like, wow, this is actually getting pretty out of hand, When they started talking about eradication, I got pretty irate.
Vocal.
Naturally.
You're like the deer man.
Well,
You're known
you know,
as a deer man up country.
I have a really deep reverence for them. You know, they were brought here for the king to feed his people. They were brought here, you know, they don't belong here, but they're here, just like lots of things. And we do have a great resource in them. And when you're out there hunting, you know, I've spent a lot of time out there hunting. I can't count how many deer I killed that year, 5 years ago. And there's been times where I've had an experience of being out hunting where it went wrong. It was just devastating, you know, to have the compassion to feel what it is that you're doing, knowing that we as human beings, as Kanaka, have the power to take life. You have a responsibility. It comes with power. Anybody who has any power at all, or the illusion of power, should be knowing that. And when it doesn't go down in a way that is pono, you have some time to, you should be taking time, you know, some pause to think about it. And there's been 6 months at a time where I couldn't even hunt because I was so devastated by watching a deer die in a way that wasn't pono, didn't feel right. And so I got very clear on how best to do it, the most compassionate way for it to be done, you know, humanely, they call it. So that is not the way that they're taught to do it in the East Coast. It's not the way that, you know, people think is the right way to do it. People always ask me, do you bow hunt? Yeah. I mean, I haven't actually been doing a lot of hunting at all lately. I process a lot of meat, and I've been putting a lot of energy into these, this action that's being taken in the creation
kind of like
that industry.
The hemorrhaging style versus the humane kill. Are you able to tell us how that's done?
I can tell you how it's not done humanely. They take helicopters and they go up and they mow down thousands of deer and bulldoze them into a hole. It's not acceptable. It's not.
It's a waste.
It is.
That's
it's
like
a
taking
waste.
one of God's resources
Exactly.
and just wiping it out without respect, without spirituality.
Yeah, using the power that you have to take that life and, well, abusing it by not doing it responsibly. By, you know, in doing so, you would create a lot of problems. People are concerned about the problems that would be created by by the activation or the implementation of a humane culling operation, but the concerns can be addressed. There's a remedy for everything. The safety aspect is high on the list, but just mowing them down and putting them in a hole creates, you know, you end up with wild packs of dogs, you end up with a burgeoning bee population. The flesh-eating bees just love it. It just, besides it being unconscionable, there's a lot of reasons why not to.
Right.
And so that drove me to come to some kind of, to come up with a plan, another way, an alternative to that, because, you know, the state and the county are getting calls and they're getting harassed by the farmers, the tourism industry. I mean, the Maui Access Deer Working Group is, what do they call it, a group of concerned citizens, but in actuality, it is a group of representatives of different economic factions.
Do
on
any
Maui.
of them hunt? Are
Some
any
of them.
hunters?
Yeah.
Are they
Yeah, well, I
humane?
mean, Kenneth Yamamura, the Department of Agriculture, the agriculture specialist for the county, he's out there shooting them out of his fields. And he's telling me, oh, it's hard to hit them in the head, you know. It's hard to make a free throw, too, on a basketball court, but some of them do it. You know, people do it. Right. So what we wound up with, what I came up with, was a way for us to harness that burgeoning population as a resource and to chip away at the population and utilize all of that resource with a zero waste goal. And that zero waste is basically stems from my background in permaculture. I grew up on a permaculture farm, you know. My father's very big into that. And every aspect of the production of everything on the farm produces waste, and in that school of permaculture, every aspect of the waste is a raw materials for another part of the farm. It's food for the fish or the chickens. So everything that is a waste product from not only the culling of deer, but even from what happens, on a day-to-day basis at the slaughterhouse. All of that offal, all of the viscera, the guts of the cows and everything, at this time, because of the rules, Department of Health rules, it has to be denatured of bacteria and then inked. They spray it with blue ink, and so that the homeless people won't go and salvage livers and stuff. And they take it to that special place in the municipal landfill. It seems like a waste. The waste, it could be used in a way that would be, for instance, beneficial to the degraded agricultural lands. Look at all of that pineapple, the fallow pineapple fields that are upcountry. They're just growing tumbleweeds now. But that is good agricultural land. It could be, once again, if we were to utilize the waste, make a rendering plant, which has actually been, has plans drawn up and funding available, make soil amendments out of all of that, in a emulsified like powder, which could be spread all over everything, inoculate the ground with good bacteria and mycorrhizae and mycelium and all the things that soil needs to be healthy. Mow it, spray the stuff, sprinkle the stuff around, and you got a good start on remediating those lands which are degraded. So this is permaculture school in action. We want to utilize the resource to the utmost. And the waste, which would go to the landfill, could be remediating land. It could be providing lots of jobs. There's a tannery in the works. I'm working on a pet food line. We're going to utilize all of that for, whatever resource it could be.
My next question was going to be, well, can it be used for pet food?
Yes, it can.
Yeah,
and it will be.
Now that's awesome, because you know how expensive pet food is.
And you don't know what you're getting.
Especially if you have big dogs.
Yeah.
And this is a dog surfing kind of island, and there are a lot of, we love our little four-leggeds.
Sure. People spend good money on good food for the dogs that they care about, So that's one aspect of the industry that we're, in the process of creating.
All right, and again, bringing it back to localizing, bringing it back to your home economy, our home economy. That's wonderful. What about the part about having a slaughterhouse and having this kind of, are we able to eat the deer after you go hunt the deer? Are we able to come to somewhere and get fresh, non-GMO, fresh venison?
At this time, it's not legal to sell, as I said, because of the hurdles that you have to overcome in order to put it on the market. The standard automatic reply was no. No, no, no. Can we make a USDA inspected product out of it? Oh, well, yeah, but it's going to cost probably 50, 80 bucks a pound, they say. They used to say.
And that was based on what?
Because of the cost of bringing in a USDA inspector, not only to the field, because it is an exotic, there's certain rules in place in a slaughterhouse. There's a USDA inspector that goes and inspects the animal before it's, while it's in the chute. Says, yeah, this obviously, at least it's standing. If it's not standing, they have other rules about it. But if it's standing, it's healthy, it's good. And then they put it down, eviscerate it. The inspector inspects, the viscera, says, okay, it's all good, cuts the flukes and all the other things off of the liver and throws that away and puts the rest of it right into the food chain. And that meat is, you don't know where it came from. You don't know how those cows were treated. You don't know what they were fed. Right. The deer, they're better, mostly free range. We do have concerns about where they may have been feeding. HCNS has a long list of chemicals that they use on their properties all the time. And we do have a concern that that would maybe show up in the meat. And the USDA, if they are involved, will take that on. And they will take samples of the meat and all of the tissues and test for all of those chemicals, so that concern is something that I addressed early on.
Well, that could lead to more resolution of issues.
It will.
Yes.
If we are going to make it a public food resource, we're going to need to, assure ourselves first and then the public that it is safe, that there are not chemical residues from the agriculture here.
Okay.
So back to what was your question before? You were asking, where can we go to get it?
Yeah.
If you don't know a hunter who can provide you with it, you can't buy it at the store. But that's about to change because of the last year and a half of work. And we have gotten a good amount of support from the county. Rob Parsons and Kenneth Yamamura have pretty much stayed in stride with my efforts and some colleagues' efforts to get the funding needed for the initiation of this culling plan. It's a USDA inspection required not only for it to make it to the market shelves where people, the lay people who don't have access to lands to hunt or who don't hunt or don't know somebody who hunts, can go and buy it. After we've done all that it takes to get it there, the cost is pretty considerable. It's more feasible today than it was 10 years ago because the USDA is being very cooperative. The USDA regional supervisor of the inspectors, a man named Joseph Rilden, has stepped in. He lives here, so he's concerned, and he has made it possible for us to consider this a feasible venture. And that's one reason, is to have people have access to it. Another reason is because the venture is going to be so costly and the county nor the state wants to subsidize it for long, it needs to have its own income stream and to support itself. And so that's another reason for the USDA inspection and the sale of meat. Ultimately, in a non-regulated environment, social environment, we would have hunters in every neighborhood, and you would go out, and a hunter would go out, he would get the meats, he would have it at his house, and his neighbors would come by for some meat. It's not quite like that now, and to make it into something that is available to everybody is part of what's driven me over the last few years, as I've focused it down to what exactly was needed. At first I was thinking it was going to need to be a full in-house operation, with its own slaughterhouse, its own packing, and then looking around realized that there is a packing house, there's a slaughterhouse on Maui, and Decoit Slaughterhouse has proven to be very cooperative.
Yay.
They see the need, they know what's good for them. They can do well to process meats as well, the local venison as well.
I love getting my fresh venison, and I love getting some mahalo to my neighbors and ohana out there that hunt and do mahealani, the fresh venison out there. And I just wanted to maybe take this moment to bring in the video that you you brought some video with you this evening. We're going to show, once you intro it for us, and we'll go ahead and roll it.
Well, I didn't really have time to edit it much. It's just some footage of a herd that I had a relationship with out in Kanaio.
Okay.
And we used to just wake up in the morning and go out before it was light, and as you can see, the view is spectacular. There's a friend of mine up in a tree watching the deer come down. And as a hunter, your fieldcraft is everything for your success. The deer would be coming down the mountain, and we would be waiting there. I had the camera today, and the deer they just walk right by. They're very much creatures of habit. If they're undisturbed, for the most part, they'll do the same thing almost every day. And the numbers that we witnessed, this was almost 10 years ago. It was about 8 years ago or so, 10 years ago. And we would see herds of 300 stacking up against the fence above the road, the Lower Kanaio Homestead Road. And they would just single file under the fence, make their way across the little ravine and up onto this big flat. And they would just pile up there and graze and play around and eventually make their way down to the tree that we were parked up in. And it's really a treat. It's a spiritual experience. You know, any hunter who does it this way knows that there's nothing like just watching a huge herd of deer walk towards you, watching them play and watch their whole little social thing. This is actually footage of an arrow flying into one of these deer. You don't. There's nothing graphic here, but they all start and run, and the camera doesn't really track the buck that goes down. But it's a this is a representation of just any day, any morning. You know, the guy out there with his bow. There goes the deer. And in this shot, there's a picture of this. This is the same herd, and there's the caller, the telemetry caller. This was happening. I guess this is 2002. You know, the information gathered from these callers helped this this man in his thesis, and showed us how amazing. I mean, I was really just amazed at what they found. I mean, at one point, I think they took one of these deer, tranquilized it with a helicopter, put a collar on it, and took it all the way up to the top of Haleakala. And I believe in a matter of a few hours, he was back where he had been picked up. They move so far, so fast, so easily. You know, that's why people don't see them, and they don't understand the nature of the damage that they can cause, because you never see them. Say you're a farmer, you're a rancher. You've got 3 paddocks where you move your 5 cows. So they eat one paddock down, and there's grass in the other paddock, and next day you're planning to take your cows over to the next paddock for the feed. Wake up that morning and the whole thing is level, flat. What happened? Where'd all the feed go? This is one of the reasons, one of the things that has gotten so many people so upset, is that there's no way to stop them from grazing your fields or your farm.
It seems that this is out of balance, and you know, what comes to my mind is, first, can this be done with mongoose? and then secondly, you know, all of our native and endemic species many have been lost over the years due to these animals. You know, it's devastating for a mea hula like myself, where my strong tradition lies in hula, and all of our plants that we use are kinolo of our spiritual ancestors, our ancestry family represented in the plants. Many of them have become extinct or on the brink of extinction because of these animals being out of control. And we know they're just trying to eat and survive, but there has to be a balance here.
Yeah, the efforts that we make for in the direction of balance that way, and we need to make a concerted effort that is not just a one-time kill-em-all approach.
Right.
That's why that was a drive for me to create a protocols or create a plan for a consistent, growing, ramp it up kind of approach to taking a little bit at a time, a couple days a week to start, get teams of guys out there and take a bunch of them, and some of them USDA inspected and some of them not, to recoup costs, and turn up the volume until such time as we're feeling like there's not as many deer now, and we never got to the part where we actually decided on how many deer was enough deer. We did decide that there's too many already.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the working group was formed over 10 years ago. Yeah.
And then took a 10-year hiatus and then got back together. And at that time, Alan Arakawa was doing his second non-consecutive term. I was at a meeting up in the county building where the Maui Access Deer Working Group was there, the mayor was there, we were coming together with him, council members were there to say, okay, we're working on this management plan and we're looking for funding. And he was going, well, how much do we need? They're saying, we're going to want to get helicopters up in the air and they're expensive. And how much do we need? You know, so we earmarked a certain amount, and then said, okay, good, but when we get done with this, we'll get these deer under control. We'll go after the dang chickens. He felt like you do about the mongoose. He was ready to go after the chickens next.
I kind of like seeing chickens around. You know, it's like part of the healthy.
That's what people say about deer. People who don't have gardens say that. Yeah.
Yeah, but chickens will eat centipedes, and you can, you know, well, you can throw a throw net over them, and
yeah, domesticated, somewhat, you know, free-range chickens are cool. Anyhow, to get back to that aspect of the industry, or that aspect of the creation, the drive for me to figure out how to do it responsibly, how to harness it, and how to utilize all of the resource. While everybody who I was talking to was saying, no, you can't, because it's not feasible. It's just going to cost too much. The meat can't be sold because it's going to cost this much, and it's going $900 per deer to inspect at the end of the day. And I said, that just can't be right. So got in touch with the USDA supervisor, and the numbers had changed. He said he would be willing to, you know, not make us pay for the flight for the inspector, and not make us rent her a car, not make us, you know. And so eventually the numbers started looking a little more promising, you know, and we kind of had a meeting with Maui Cattle Company, the county, the USDA, myself, and one of my colleagues, Phyllis Robinson, and lined up all of the hoops. I mean, I had been busy lining up all the hoops and all of the red tape to jump through and cut all at once, because you know, all of the no, every single no has a remedy, as you know from law. You don't have a rule that doesn't have a remedy. So if you say no and expect me to stop there, you're going to see me roll off and keep going, because I can't stop. You know, I'm driven to do this, and came up with the plan and presented it to these guys. And because, you know, DeCoit's is willing, the slaughterhouse is willing to work with us. Maui Cattle Company already has all the packaging equipment and the distribution lines and the good name and all of that. And the county was talking about being willing to support it. The USDA was saying, well, in that case, you know, because they've gotten tired of saying no. They've been, people have been asking them, how many times in the last 5 years the man has had to repeat himself, and it was evident when he asked me, can we never talk about this again? After the first time we talked about what it entails, which is the pre-mortem inspection in the field, and then take it to the slaughterhouse right away, and then the post-mortem inspection. It is daunting, but possible. And with funding from the county, that machine, that harvesting arm, is going to be cranked up. In fact, it's already happened. The USDA inspected axis deer, the first one, has already gone through DeCoit's slaughterhouse doors and was given to Maui Cattle Company. That was a couple of weeks ago, and that was the funding from the county did come through on that.
All right.
After the fourth time the grant was rewritten to satisfy corporate counsel.
Success? So
yes.
you've had success?
Perseverance furthers.
Yeah.
And nothing else does,
give
really.
a hand to your audience. All right, mahalo. We want to hear that. That's good news. Nice. So
Yes. So, considering the numbers, considering you asked how many, I didn't answer. But if there's not, I'm no problem saying this, that if there's not 100,000 deer on Maui already, next year, in a year, there will be, because if there's not 100, there's 75,000.
I believe you.
And another season is going to just destroy us. And so to ramp it up, to get these harvesting crews out there, we need we need cooperation. We need the cooperation of the public. We need to have the agreement, you know, has already been reached that we've got a problem. And still we have resistance, because when you talk about guys going out and shooting deer, you know, or people crawling around the edges of your neighborhood, down those little gulches between the neighborhood, that and shooting even bows and arrows. It's people have a great deal of concern, you know, and liability is a huge issue. To have landowners willing to have these culling teams go out onto their land it's a considerable liability and a concern.
I was going to bring that up too. If we have you folks out there considered as private landholders and stewards of these private lands, you could actually give waiver of liability or have the team sign a waiver of, you know, no claim, no liability will be taken by the steward over the land.
It's been addressed.
And okay, good. Well, let's address it again. This is live public television, and we're addressing you. Go ahead, Lokahi. We got like 10 minutes.
Okay. What all the efforts that I put into getting funding to get these crews up and moving and the USDA inspection rolling resulted in, it became apparent pretty quick that a newly formed LLC, which is Maui Deer Culling, my entity, was
Maui
Deer Culling. And culling, yes, culling is the act of taking a certain amount of a group according to certain criteria. For anybody who doesn't know what culling is, the county and of course a lot of people were not comfortable with that, and who am I, right? So the formation of a cooperative was the route that we choose to take. The cooperative structure turned out to be a good way to attract funding, limit liability, the insurance that the cooperative has had to take out is sufficient. It would have been difficult for me personally to do it. So what we wound up with was a hunters cooperative. It's called, now you see it in the paper, is the awardee of the grant, the awardee of the grant monies from the state, and it's Maui Axis Deer Harvesters Cooperative. And Maui Axis Deer Harvesters Cooperative is available at this time to help landowners and ranchers and farmers and anyone really within a state or property that is being damaged. They're available to come and manage the deer on your property.
Do they have, I'm sorry, Helene, do they have a website, or how can people listening to
They really should have a website, shouldn't they? Maybe I'll talk to them about that.
All right.
Get one up and going, because...
Well, they can contact you, and then you can do the whole hookup thing.
I'm looking real quick as I ask somebody to text me the contact number of a man named Michael Tavares.
Okay.
Michael Tavares has stepped up into the front line of that entity, and it appears that I don't have his contact just now. Maybe somebody could call me in his number. Anyhow, the safety of the landowner, their property, and their neighbors is paramount. That's something that they've put a lot of energy into. The safety plan is bulletproof. Pardon the pun. And there's expediting of the DOFAW permits, which are required to shoot at night. They will personally take your application down to DLNR and make it go a little bit faster. Get their guys on this list, you get yourself added as an additionally insured, and then set up an appointment for these guys to come out and establish, do a daytime walkthrough, get familiar with, orient themselves on your property, and then they'll establish what lanes are safe to shoot in, and set up a time frame to come by and help you discourage the deer from your property.
That's awesome, Lokahi. Mahalo nui. And we are just about at the end of our show. You want to get a hold of Lokahi? Check it out. Email him through his website. It is mauideerculling.com. You can email him there or check him out upcountry. You know where to go on Saturday mornings if you're in the Kula, Mactown area. Check him out, selling coconuts or actually giving away coconuts as well. And it's a wonderful scene on Saturday mornings. It's great, refreshing, and I love the idea of the cooperatives. We're a part of it as well. So mahalo. Oh yeah, here we have an ili of a deer.
This is a hide. This is an example of what can be done with the axis deer skin. It's really a beautiful thin skin. This is brain tanned in the Native American way and smoked with pine punk.
Nice.
Who doesn't want a pair of chaps made out of that?
Well, mahalo for bringing that, and thank you once again for being on Lokahi. We're going to go out again with another tribute. We want to send out our show in memorial to our wonderful brother, Anthony Natividad. You are so loved and so blessed, and we've been blessed by your presence here with us. So mahalo, Hana. Tune in once again. Have a wonderful and safe Halloween. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Aloha.
Okay, the nose flute is a very ancient instrument, and you're gonna feel it more than you hear it. So just close your eyes, put your drink down so you don't drop it. Just stay there. Look at that.
Aloha. Many, many blessings have been shared by you. Thank you so much and your family. During that time, just to come back again, we have a few seconds until we're out. The question about Molokai and Lanai, are they included in the cooperative?
At this time, we have nobody. I don't think there's anybody on Lanai who is involved. We have gone to Molokai, and we spoke with a man over there named Desmond Manaba, and he has a deer farm, literally like, 1,000 acres, and a pen, and some good mana'o on how we might harvest them here. He's doing it, but he's having trouble too with the USDA. So we do plan to collaborate with him.
Great.
And anyone really. It is a county-wide problem. It's not just Maui. Maui, we have a lot of visitors, we have a lot of traffic and stuff, so there's a lot of collisions and stuff, but Molokai has had them longer, and their watershed has suffered quite a bit. We're learning a lot from them.
They know how to swim in the ocean over there, Molokai. The deer.
I've had first-hand
They go and
accounts.
find fresh water, and I think they fish too. They must eat fish.
Diving for food.
Yeah, they're diving.
Put it past them. But they do show up in the channels.
Yes,
They do show up,
yes.
and friends of mine have told me about roping them to the boat, and dragging them back to the dock.
That's what happens. It's a magical place that we live in. We need your kokua, and this is your aina as well as our aina. Lanai, send somebody. MauiDeerCulling.com. And I've just been reminded that we have to speak about what's going on in Hana. If you're listening, Ilohe ia, whoever that is, with respect, if you're out dremeling pohaku and you're selling them and commercializing pohaku on the side of the road, someone please go over and tap him gently on the shoulder and invite him into the cultural sensitivities that are here and welcome him into the mana'o of protocol and cultural sensitivity, being aware of what we do with pohaku and also, what it means to the host culture here. So thank you very much, and also mahalo nui again. Be safe, lahelevi, and hau'olila ho'omai kai yakako pakaya pau. Mahalo.